Let's wait for just a moment. President Trump is on Capitol Hill.
Some Democrats, sir, are still talking about impeachment. What's your response to that?
I don't think they're talking about impeachment. We have the greatest economy we've ever had. Our country's in incredible shape. They and others created a fraud in our country with this ridiculous witch hunt, where it was proven very strongly, no collusion, no obstruction, no nothing. We are doing so well. We've never probably had a time of prosperity like this. It's been great.
You're accusing the people who launched the investigation into your campaign of treasonous acts. How high up do you think it went?
I think it went very high up. I think what happened is a disgrace. I don't believe our country should allow this ever to happen again. This will never happen again. We cannot let it ever happen again. It went very high up, and it started fairly low, but with instructions from the high up. This should never happen to a president again. We can't allow that to take place.
Do you think you reached the west wing of the Obama White House?
I don't want to say that, but I think you know the answer.
Says while you did not commit a crime,
Who said what?
While the Mueller report says, according to the bar,
the Mueller report was great. It could not have been better. It said no obstruction, no collusion. It could not have been better.
The administration is making very clear that you think the Affordable Care Act is invalid and should be struck down. What is your message to Americans?
Let me just tell you exactly what my message is. The Republican Party will soon be known as the party of health care. You watch.
All right, President Trump there on Capitol Hill. And just to be clear, we have to fact check something he just said. He said the Mueller report is great, and then he said it said no obstruction, no collusion. Just to be clear, here is one. We haven't seen the report. There's a few quotes from it in the letter from Attorney General Barr, but here's what it said, quote, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. That is on obstruction. So it certainly does not say no obstruction. I want to bring in Laura Coates to talk about this. Here, you can see what the president is doing now coming out of, we haven't seen the report, but it's gone to the Justice Department. And right now the AG is looking at it and scrubbing it and figuring out what he can hand to Congress. He was asked, the president, how high up did this go? And he is clearly, he said, I don't want to say it, but he is. He's pointing a finger back at the Obama West Wing, presumably at President Obama. What do you make of this?
Well, I think this is part of a concerted effort, anticipation of now that there's no criminality aspect of it. Well, the impeachment proceedings, if there were ever to be so, is in the political context, and it requires there to be a coming to Jesus moment between the Republicans and Democrats. So if you pit the two against each other, as in the Democrats have had some hand perhaps in the actual, what he calls a witch hunt or a colossal waste of time, depending on what he wants to say in the day, he is trying to establish that there may be articles of impeachment that could be drafted in the House run by the Democrats. But the Democrats are a problem. If they were inherently complicit in all of this, then it will not actually influence the Senate-led Republicans to be able to say, we'll go forward with everything. So he's well aware of the controversy at issue, and he's saying, this is about Democrats and Republicans hashing it out about the popularity contest of being the president. Because remember, during the Clinton years, we already know from what happened to Newt Gingrich to the popularity of Bill Clinton, impeachment did not inure to the benefit of those who were seeking impeachment of Bill Clinton. It actually assisted the popularity and the longevity of the tenure of Bill Clinton. So he's aware of this game that he's playing. And of course, he uses the words wisely, and you pointed it out very effectively that the Mueller report did not exonerate him on the issue of obstruction. It was the Barr summation of the Mueller report that still leaves very loose ends about why could there be a conclusion about collusion and not a conclusion reached about obstruction. Remember, the president is the head of the executive branch. Their job is to enforce the laws. If there is a question with regard to obstruction, the very question that led both Nixon to eventually resign, obstruction, the idea of Bill Clinton impeached on the issue of obstruction, this is not something to be dismissive of. So he needs to have a political rally going on about this notion.
And it's interesting listening to him there, listening to a number of White House officials coming out of the last few days. It's almost easy if you just listen to them to forget what this investigation was all about, which was Russian meddling in the 2016 election, right? 37 people or entities charged, many of them Russian entities or people. there were 16 Trump associates who had contact with Russians. What should, if you're looking at this, keeping in mind, and we keep having to say this, we haven't seen the report. We have only seen the summary put together by a political appointee of President Trump's, right? That's important. What do you think, even just looking at that letter, should be the takeaway other than this focus of what the president is talking about?
Well, remember that the mandate was about the campaign and a foreign entity's influence in it. The president's public opinion and the president's publicity campaign has been about making it about himself. That was never actually implicit in the narrative, but was never actually in the mandate. It was his campaign, not the president. So he's been very effective of steering the conversation to this witch hunt theory. The issue here is that there were always parallel investigations going on, or should have been going on. It was Mueller on the criminal side, but Congress has a legislative role to perform. And their role is not simply about impeachment or the pursuit of it. It's also about, there is a gap here, Brianna, between what we think is wrong behavior in a political campaign, receiving perhaps opposition research or getting the benefit of foreign interference. We think that's a wrong thing. Has the law matched that in the corresponding ways that it's been written to say we want to criminalize that conduct? So Congress has a role here to look at not only the impeachment side, if they want to, but the notion of how do they fill in the gap? That was always their agenda and what always should have been. What their role has to be going forward now is figuring out, has it already been investigated? Do we already know enough to know how we can legislate a remedy? That's why the Mueller report in its full fashion is important. We do not want Congress to take 22 more months to figure out how to reinvent the wheel.
Yep, let's remember, if this is a witch hunt, as the president describes it, it found a lot of witches, and they are Russian. You just have to look at what the Mueller investigation found. Laura Coates, thank you so much.